All right. As many of you probably heard, popular Good Morning America anchors TJ Holmes and Amy Robach have reportedly been having an affair for several months, and both of them are in the process of divorcing their spouses. Well, the topic set Twitter ablaze, and it brought up an interesting conversation for me, a conversation on work wives and work husbands. Basically, someone you have a relationship with that very similar to that of a spouse, where they're at work and it's sometimes platonic, most times probably not platonic. So my question is, are you good with work spouses, even if it's just maybe really a good platonic friends? And then what are your thoughts, if any, on the GMA affair? I want to start with Gianni.
I feel like you should be able to have friends of the opposite sex at the workplace, but it's a slippery slope because one is the workplace. Why are you flirting?
Mm-hmm.
And then to have that in your mind, like, oh, this is my work husband in your mind, that's weird. I'm gonna divorce you if you're my husband and you do that. We're getting a divorce.
I agree. Robbie?
I'm with Johnny because it's when you start normalizing wife, husband outside of your relationship with your spouse,
Weird.
it just diminishes it. Yeah, it's weird. So, and I know that the term is usually used in a lighthearted manner, but like as Neo alluded to, it can lay you down or it can lead you down a stray path. That being said, like Johnny said, having a work bestie is cool. Just don't stray. Don't let it go there.
I mean, is there a
And
difference between
Neo,
a work wife and a
Boundaries.
work bestie?
well,
If it's
yeah,
a female
Yeah.
opposite sex or somebody that.
of course there is.
Okay, all right,
Of
cool.
course.
The affair
Lizzie?
part.
So I find the term to be offensive. I was accused or labeled as, a good friend of a good colleague, friend of mine. I was accused by his then wife of being his work wife. And I hated the term because it implied something else that wasn't there. That he was a Sports Illustrated colleague. And again, as journalists, we worked crazy hours, 12, 14 hours a day, 5, 6 days a week. Yes, I was with him a lot more sometimes than he was with his wife and his family at home. But that wasn't my fault. And there certainly wasn't anything more sinister going on than that. But she was the one that coined the term, not me. She was the
Yeah.
one that coined the term. And so I found it offensive to the point where, because they eventually got divorced, and then he left Sports Illustrated, and everyone initially were just like, okay, so now that you guys aren't working together any longer, are you going to get together? And I'm like,
Oh my
no,
gosh.
no.
Horrible.
Like I never
Horrible.
created this. So I've always found the term to be offensive.
Oh,
I get that it
Wow.
happens with other people, but it's especially unless you create it for yourself. If someone else is creating it for me, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I hate it.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
my wife was particularly pissed
Minimizes
about
you.
she's like, I know they're fucking. I was like, I knew it. I knew it.
You can tell.
But Neo and Mel, have you guys seen? She wasn't the first one.
Oh yeah, right. She was not the first
Apparently,
one. Yeah.
apparently he had a prior affair with another colleague
Yeah.
at GMA.
Yeah.
This dude is just
What?
garbage.
Yeah. TJ Holmes.
This
Yeah.
dude is garbage.
Yeah. He's not
garbage.
He reminds me of Tiger Woods.
Ah,
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Is this truth, lies, or shenanigans?
Truth.
Apparently.
Oh, it's shenanigans.
it's more shenanigans.
Lots of
Shenanigans. of
Titillating, titillating
Shenan
shenanigans.
again. Shenan
Between the
again.
sheets, shenanigans. Between the sheets, shenanigans.
Between the sheets. Shenanigans.
Jacqueline Robinson online says, I was jokingly accused of being being my former boss's work wife by colleagues.
I remember that. I remember
Someone I
that.
dated
Crazy.
thought it was real. It's crazy.